Something that I kind of get called a lot is coconut, because I'm brown and then white on the inside. I get that a lot.
So like my last name is Kauer, and that's German, that's Kauer. But I've had people come up to me before and ask what my name is, and I say it's Frank Kauer, and they say Kawa, like, and do a karate chop at the same time.
Weird because when people say things like that, I feel like they think they're paying you like a compliment. When they're like, oh my gosh, you're not like other black people, that's so crazy. And in reality, it's just like, it kind of reinforces that whole like, you like, other black people don't belong.
I think my question to them would be, what are other Indian people like? Like, it's like, again, like categorizing all Indian people as the same thing. They expect me to be really good at math, and I suck at maths. They expect,
Don't you do economics?
Yeah, I'm not like other Indian people. Maybe I might have some stuff that relates to some Indian people. I have stuff that relates to white people, to black people. We all have our separate qualities, and I think that's what people kind of need to understand when they ask questions like that.
How about this? Some people are different.
If you think about a person as a person and not a person as a member of a certain creed or like race or whatever, then you're just seeing them for that individual. By saying this statement, you're taking away that kind of individual element of an actual human being.
The amount of times I've been asked this question is actually so funny. I literally get asked this question anytime I go to a new environment. So whenever I've started a new school, or like whenever I've started a new class at uni. And I know it's kind of a question that doesn't really make sense. I think if you just ask where are you from and you get an answer like, well, if somebody asked me that, I would be like, yeah, I'm from Bristol. And then they ask me, where are you really from? For someone of colour, that's a really weird question to ask, especially because I'm born in Bristol, I've lived here my whole life. It doesn't make sense to be like, where are you really from?
It can be really like hurtful to have to like do this constantly, to have to like justify like your Britishness, and I guess like your like actual place in like whatever like environment that's in, be it like the university, or like even like your own street.
Have you ever experienced that yourself?
Not personally actually, but
I have.
I've seen people say it, and it's just a bit, yeah.
I've actually had people like shout comments like that in the streets more than I guess people saying that up front to you.
It's quite an interesting statement for me, just because like I immigrated when I was 5, and as far as I'm concerned, like I'm equally as British as a lot of my friends who are fully Caucasian.
Yeah.
And even though I'm half Caucasian, half Asian, like, I still consider myself to be, as British, and I speak the same language, I eat the same food, I do the same things as everyone that I know, and I'm part of this culture, part of, you call it the dominant culture.
You just don't really get a sense of identity. It's a bit like, if I'm working in this country, I think my dad's got this a lot, actually more than me, and especially for somebody that's working in your country, paying taxes, saying go back to your own country, it just would make you feel really upset and angry, especially once you've lived in that country most of your life and kind of had your life there. Yeah.
It's more of a statement for people that are just so ignorant that they don't understand that where you're from doesn't affect like who you are as a person necessarily. That doesn't mean you can't celebrate your own culture or your own heritage, but like where you grow up and what you're exposed to your whole life, like that's who you become.
I've had guys come up to me and say this, and it's a bit like, how am I exotic? I'm just a person. Like, you wouldn't go up to a white person and be like, I wouldn't go up to a white person and be like, oh, you're so exotic. It's just a weird situation.
A lot of the time when people do this kind of thing, it's also because of like their fetishization of people from specific races, and then also like the kids of people of mixed race, of mixed backgrounds. and because there's an idea that people love to fetishize mixed race kids, and they're like, oh, they're so pretty, they've got such like nice hazel eyes and such beautiful curly hair. It's very like jarring.
I've had this one quite a lot. It's just a way of like often like discrediting like what we say. I think people need to understand is that like as people of colour, we are so used to just being like completely ignored that I guess whenever we get like the slightest bit passionate about something that could be really, really, really important to us,
yeah, so with the M word, is people feel like they can say it because it's in songs and because black people say it, but the people making these songs aren't white. People saying it aren't white, like they're black people who have gone through experiences that mean the N word has had like a negative impact on black people, and when they use it, it's more to reclaim it rather than to oppress as it was in the first place. So it's like I've had conversations with white people telling me why they should be able to say it while saying it to me, and it's just a very jarring experience to have. Yeah.
I think what I get like somewhat worried about is like people thinking that they can say these words, or people that say these words like trying to be edgy when like a particular like song comes on.
Yeah, you know, that actually happened. Like I was in Gravity this one time, and it's like Chris Brown song or something that had the N word in it, and people literally were singing it like with full confidence. And you could see like black people there kind of getting really uncomfortable with that situation. And it was like they didn't realise what they were doing wrong, but it was so wrong. And to happen in a club, like so many people of different nationalities in Bristol, it was actually quite shocking. Like that's the first time I heard it like that much.
I mean, it's a really flat instance of like white ignorance, right? It's just completely like oblivious to like how people of colour are feeling in this situation, despite the fact that they are going to be the ones hurt by it. Like, I frankly don't care if like you have a friend that, you know, says that you can use like so and so words. That doesn't mean that it's okay to say. Like, it's really, really, really hurtful. Just don't say it, don't do it, not okay.
My first experience with blatant racism, this is not even microaggressions, macroaggressions, so like actual just overt kind of intent to, you know, it's a derogatory intent to try and anger me, upset me, was in primary school from another kid who said it. He knew what it meant, and he knew he was saying it to me, so, but at the time I didn't know what it meant. And I've never heard the word before either, and I was maybe 10 years old, and I remember asking my mother when I was back home what it meant, because it was quite a big deal. I remember at the time, like in the situation, but obviously I wasn't aware. So, and obviously it's upsetting for her, and it's upsetting obviously now for me, that I was exposed to that at probably, it was quite a young age, like 10 years old. You shouldn't even have to think about any of those kind of things, or like that kind of, shouldn't be put in that kind of situation. But being someone who is half Asian in a dominant white culture, there are always going to be people that see people of colour like us, like as the other, or try and upset us for a reason. And yeah, I don't know, the C word is different maybe.
This is a really weird question, especially for me because I've been born here. Like I've spoken English my whole life, but I get this quite a lot from old people. I found they'll ask me, "How is your English so good?" I'm like, I have no answer to that. I was born here.
Like I've had that with my mum, and again, she's grown up in Bristol her whole life, and she's as British as anyone else that I know, and she's a short Chinese lady that lives in the middle of London, and I hear a lot of my friends who meet her, and then afterwards they come up to me and say, "Oh, wow, your mum doesn't speak with an accent," and I'm like, "Why would she? I mean, she was born here, she grew up here,
Yeah.
and it just makes no sense to me that people would assume that every Chinese person or person of colour would have to have an accent, or that their English would not be on par with their own, or that they're somehow not speaking English as to a high enough level that they expect, or the opposite that scares them, or that surprises them maybe."
Microaggressions are this really small but really common problem in society, and there's no really one way to stop it, but I think whenever you are about to make comments like these, or whenever you hear somebody make comments like these, it's important to just stand up and say what's right, and that's kind of the only way that this is going to get better, really.
I think it's really important to understand that microaggressions can be really, really, really quite hurtful when they accumulate over time. They can really burn very deep into your subconscious and whatever, in such a way that you're constantly worrying about every single thing that you do. I think the really sort of worrying thing for me is often when they're called out, or when white people in particular are called out, it leads to people getting extremely sort of defensive, and people saying I'm not a racist, or people being racism is racism is for people like Tommy Robinson, for example, and I'm better than that. And it's racism has so many different levels. It's still racism, and I think that really does need to be acknowledged. So do cease with the white fragility.